Hi guys, we're back with a breaking genetics story. Last night, around 5 p.m., Jessica Day got home to her apartment where she lives with her 3 roommates and found that someone had completely tangled up all of her yarn. Since she's a teacher and an avid craftswoman, she was absolutely furious and questions all 3 of her roommates, Nick, Schmidt, and Winston, as well as Nick's dad, Walt, who had been staying with them for the week. Of the 4 suspects, none of them admitted to tangling her yarn, and therefore she decided to take it upon herself to figure it out. After having examined the yarn, she noticed a small piece of hair within the entanglement. She went back to the school that evening and raided the science department, taking their electrophoresis equipment so that she could analyze the DNA herself. After setting up the equipment, she DNA fingerprinted each of the suspects and amplified the DNA on 2 different VNTR loci on separate gels so that she could determine the match between the DNA from the criminal and the DNA from her 4 suspects, all of whom are diploid individuals. Each DNA sample was placed into separate wells on each of the gels so that she could analyze the loci through electrophoresis. In electrophoresis, the electrical current moves the negatively charged DNA toward the positive end, allowing the shorter DNA fragments to travel faster and the longer DNA fragments to travel more slowly. After the electrophoresis was completed, Jess stained the gel and put it under a UV light, which she also took from the school. This allowed her to view the 2 VNTR loci and compare her suspects with the criminal DNA and her own DNA, which she is using to prove her innocence. Here we have the DNA from all 4 suspects, Jess, and the criminal. When looking at the first VNTR locus, we can see that we can automatically rule out Winston because he shows no match in DNA with the criminal and therefore is not a possible suspect. Our next obvious deductions are that both Nick and Schmidt are perfect matches with the DNA of the criminal, making them our prime suspects. Jess will have to analyze the DNA from the second locus in order to confirm one of these matches as the criminal. Walt shows a partial match with Nick, and since we know that Walt is Nick's dad, we can assume that this is the reasoning behind that. Jess showed a partial match with the DNA from the criminal, but she is not the likely match. Looking at our second VNTR locus, we see that Winston still shows no correlation with the DNA of the criminal, and we know for certain that he is still not a possible suspect. Both Nick and Walt show a full match with the criminal DNA, and since we know that Walt didn't 100% match with the DNA from the criminal in the first VNTR locus, we can deduce that Nick is the criminal who tangled up all of Jess's yarn. Nick and Walt matching completely with each other can be partially attributed to their familial relation. Schmidt only shows a partial match with the criminal DNA on VNTR2, and therefore confirms that he wasn't the criminal, and that Nick did the deed. Jess doesn't show any similarities with the criminal DNA in the VNTR locus 2. In conclusion, we see that Winston was completely innocent and had no relation to the criminal. Walt is confirmed as Nick's biological parent, supported by their similar DNA. Schmidt showed some similarity with the criminal DNA, yet was also innocent. Nick was found as our criminal.